We're about to go into the final weekend of June, and a lot of New York fans, whether you're a Met or a Yankee fan, are kind of panicking these days. And can I just offer this one word? Relax.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Find us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page. Leave a comment. I will read it. This is the final weekend of June 2025. We're wrapping up June, and July is starting in just a few days. Next weekend will be the 4th of July. And this is a big, interesting time if you are a baseball fan and if you're a baseball team, especially a baseball team that is, well, teetering on the edge of being a contender or not. Or if you have images of a World Series title dancing in your head, it is an interesting time because guess what? Now's the time you got to make some real big league decisions, real big time decisions, because you are facing that month where it's make or break. Yes, I know we've got more than half the season ahead of us. What are you talking about, Sully? Well, about a month from now, it's going to be the trade deadline. When the trade deadline is over, then you've locked your team in. Now, if you're a team that is thinking long and hard about winning a World Series title this year, and you're pretty good, now's the time when you say, hey, we can't think about the future right now. We have a chance to win right here and right now. And if you're a team, as I mentioned the other day, like the Detroit Tigers, where the window of opportunity may not be open as long as it would be for, say, the Dodgers, Mets, or Yankees, you got to make your efforts right now. You can't do what the Orioles did in 2023 and act like you've got years and years and years and years and years of contention. As I said before, if you're the Tigers and if you have a player who is not going to be on the Major League roster in 2025, they are available. But the two New York teams have images of winning a World Series title. The Yankees made the World Series last year, and the Mets got to within 2 wins of the World Series last year. Both of whom made big acquisitions last year. Juan Soto went across town and became a Met, but one of the best free agent signings of the offseason turned out to be Max Fried, who's turned into the new ace of the Yankees, especially in the wake of what could have been the most devastating injury of any player in all of baseball, which was the loss of Garrett Cole, who, when healthy, is the best pitcher in the American League, or at least the best pitcher in the American League not named a healthy Jacob deGrom. But Max Fried has made it so the Yankees are still in first place. And the Mets have made a couple of big, huge moves, and obviously the Juan Soto was the biggest move. And if you listen to Locked On Mets or Locked On Yankees, you would think you were listening to Locked On Rockies or Locked On White Sox. Lots of depression, lots of bad thoughts going on from the two New York teams. And to be fair, both New York teams have had a rough go of it for the last couple of weeks. Let's just go back. Let's be Superman, spin the world backwards, and go back to June 12th, which is just a couple of weeks ago, okay? On June 12th, the Mets were up by 5.5 games, and the Yankees were up by 4.5 games. And they were adding to their lead, both teams, and there were thoughts of, wow, could this be a Subway Series this year? Could this be the year, first time since 2000, to have the Mets and the Yankees? Oh my God, it's going to be all New York. Well, to be fair to Met fans, it got really bad. It got really bad as they went They lost 10 out of 11 games. 10 out of 11 games, and they looked terrible. They looked absolutely terrible in that 11-game stretch. And they got beaten up by the Phillies. The Braves were able to beat them a few times. And in that stretch, they fell from 5.5 up into second place. And Met fans, including my cousin Dave, were like, oh my God, what are we even doing? And the Yankees said, hold my beer. We'll get swept by the Red Sox. We'll nearly get swept by the Angels and Reds. And the offense for the Yankees would go into an absolute tailspin, and shows that this team is so poorly constructed, but heaven forbid anyone say anything bad about Brian Cashman, that if Aaron Judge doesn't hit a home run, that team virtually can't score. It'd be interesting. I haven't done this homework, and maybe I should before I hit record right now, but how many times have the Yankees only scored on solo homers? They scored a run in that one of the extra inning losses they had. It was to Cincinnati because of a wild pitch. They can't move runners along. They're an incompetent offense unless Aaron Judge gets a hold of one. And the Yankees saw their lead evaporate, and oh my God, what are they going to do? And yet, here we are entering the final weekend of June. The Mets are in first place by themselves. The Yankees are in first place by themselves. Now, granted, both of their leads are down to half a game, but the Mets had fallen out of first place, and now they're back in first. And the Phillies have their own issues. Now, the Mets have some new issues because they have a pitching staff which I thought was not going to be, I think it was going to be their strength. In fact, I thought it was going to be their Achilles heel, and that was a terrible analogy to make because Canning, who's pitched quite well for them, looks like he's going to be out at, he's on the 60-day injured list, and just by mathematics, that's going to be almost the rest of the season, and 60-day is usually code for you're done. And the Yankees' offense is a mess, but they're both still in first place. And do you know what? There are solutions out there that may not be blockbuster solutions, but they don't have to be. Juan Soto's heating up right now, and he could be that MVP candidate the Mets thought they were going to get. And Aaron Judge is the best player not named Shohei Ohtani on the planet right now. There are some solutions that may not break the proverbial bank and may solve some of the issues for both New York teams. So relax, New York. Just relax. Let me tell you something. I love spontaneous trips to the ballpark. I did one the other day when I went to the Giants and Red Sox games. I've had spontaneous trips to Dodger games, Sacramento A's games, you name it. And do you know what? In order to get those good tickets when you're just feeling like going off to the game, that's where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can get food, drinks. I can get a new hat and even get a bigger group to go with you. Although, truth be told, I love going to the ball game by myself. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Price on the apps actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes out the worrying of buying tickets. And it's the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB. Make it easy to browse the app for an exciting game. Like you got the Giants and Dodgers right up the 101 from where I'm standing right now. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB. You get $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest prices, they're guaranteed. Last year, and I've been one to criticize Brian Cashman over the last few decades, but last year, Brian Cashman made a very smart move. The Yankees' offense was at a little bit of a sputterville, and he acquired Jazz Chisholm Jr., not the old man. The old man was no good. And he didn't really have a position with the Yankees. They wound up putting him at third base, which is certainly not his natural position. But it was a great trade for this reason. The Yankees' offense was in a weird place. And basically it was Aaron Judge or nothing. And they needed another bat. They needed another spot in the lineup that wasn't an automatic out. And Jazz Chisholm coming over from Miami allowed him to have someone who was not an automatic out and actually added a little bit of speed and a little bit of a spark when he was at the plate. I'm not saying Jazz Chisholm became an MVP candidate for the Yankees last year, but here's the deal. They didn't need one. They just needed to fill a hole in the lineup. Their lineup was filled with automatic outs. And with that, they sputtered. If Aaron Judge fell into a slump, they fell into a slump. Sound familiar? This is what the Yankees are in right now. At the beginning of the year, they're getting huge contributions from Jock Peterson and Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt. But right now, their offense is in Sputterville. And what they really need is another human being to be in the lineup who could get a hit and just not be an out. Remember this bit of philosophy. Mediocre is better than bad. If there's a bad spot in their lineup and they fill it with something mediocre, that by definition is an improvement. So maybe, just maybe, the Yankees need to go out there and say they don't need an MVP candidate. They have one. They have a lock for the MVP in Aaron Judge, barring injury. And they have some other players who have been there, done that. Thank you very much. But think about like a Ryan McMahon. Okay, the Ryan McMahon for the Rockies is, he's signed for the next few seasons. He plays third base, which is a bit of a black hole for the Yankees. And he got off to a lousy start, but he's hitting better now. And maybe, just maybe, you get a Ryan McMahon out of the hellhole that is Denver. Denver's a lovely city. And put him in a situation where he can contend and maybe get a couple of hits and going, oh my God, I'm in the lineup with Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. Holy Toledo. And get a little spark going. You're not asking him to be a great player for a full season. You're asking him to deliver a half season of baseball. All of a sudden, your third base position has a major leaguer there, and you have another spot in your lineup that isn't an automatic out. Now, Ryan McMahon may not want to go. The Rockies may not want to trade away one of their few players that the fans actually know who he is. I understand it's not quite as simple as that. But a move like that could be exactly the thing they need. There's a siren going on behind me. This is the danger of doing one of these when you're outside. I think a team like the Yankees should be potentially picking the carcass of the Pirates or the Orioles, two teams that, well, the Orioles thought they had a shot to win the division this year, and the Pirates were hoping that they were playing in a weak enough division for them to contend. Well, that didn't turn out that way, did they? But if you take someone like, I know Isaiah Kiner-Falefa's name has come up, and he's a good defensive third baseman, and has done okay with the bat. Certainly would do better than DJ LeMahieu at this point. Kick the tires. Kick the tires on them. Ask about Cedric Mullins, for the Orioles. I know they're better off trying to get an infielder, but that one move to get a major league hitter in their lineup could be enough to right the ship for the Yankees. Just make sure the lineup can turn around. Make sure that Aaron Judge's solo home run turns into a two-run home run. Make sure that Giancarlo Stanton has a pitch to hit because the person batting behind him is not whiffing. It doesn't have to be a superstar. They have the superstars. Sometimes it's the Marco Scuderos or the Cody Rosses that you acquire in mid-season, or the Steve Pearces that you acquire in mid-season, who become the big October heroes, because you're not asking them to carry the team. Now, what did all those players I just mentioned have in common? They all won postseason MVPs. They were all acquired mid-season, and when they were all acquired, nobody blinked. So what, Steve Pearce? That's right. Your World Series MVP in 2018. Now, as for the Mets, I think they have to kick the tires with both the Orioles and the Pirates because they just need some major league pitching. They're not going to get an ace, but ask the Pirates. You're not going to get Paul Skeens, and there's no way if they trade Paul Skeens, and you got to fold the Pirates immediately. But Andrew Heaney, why not give him a call, or why not call for a bunch? The Orioles have a bunch of pitchers, and a lot of them with expiring contracts, like Charlie Morton and Zach Eflin and Sir Anthony Dominguez and Sugano, all these pitchers they have there. If I were the Mets, I would offer a halfway decent prospect and try to get a couple of them. And if you're the Orioles or the Pirates, that's probably the best way you're going to get some sort of return. If you're trying to trade away, if the Pirates are going to have a bake sale and trade Heaney or David Bednar or kind of Falefa or get O'Neal Cruz and his mopey butt off the team, or if the Orioles want to say, hey, we got Ryan O'Hearn, Cedric Mullins, Gary Sanchez, Charlie Morton, all these veterans who have a lot of expiring contracts. Let's try to get something done with them. You're probably going to get a bigger return if you offer multiple. If you say, hey, we'll give you Anthony Dominguez and Charlie Morton. By the way, Charlie Morton got off to a horrible start, but he's pitching a lot better now. And if you're trying to get a veteran pitcher with a couple of World Series rings in his pocket, that's where he keeps them in his pocket. You could do worse than that. If you're the Orioles, you're better off trying to get one blue chip prospect or one really quality prospect and give up a couple of expiring contracts than trying to get a bunch of garbage. I'm just saying, if you got a team say, hey, we'll give you 3 major league pitchers, you give us a couple minor leaguers, including one really good one, that's a better deal than saying, let's just trade these 3 players and get 3 middling prospects who will never see the light of day. I'm just saying. But if you're the Mets or the Yankees, you're in first place going into the final weekend of June. And you're going to go into the trade deadline not having to acquire an ace, not having to acquire an MVP, but to get the complementary parts around it. If you're a New York fan, you got to relax, okay? There are ups and there are downs. And the Mets went on a horrific stretch, losing 10 out of 11 games. And when the dust settled, they were still in first place by themselves. As the song goes from Monty Python, start with nothing, you end up with nothing. What have you lost? Nothing. A lot of weird news. I'm going to try to do some follow-ups on the A's groundbreaking, to the surprise of nobody on the planet Earth. The cranes and the excavators that were behind them during the ceremony were rented and were not being used for construction. They were essentially props. They were set pieces. The whole conference was basically there to get people off their backs. And I thought you were doing a groundbreaking. Yeah, here's a groundbreaking. Yeah, we just dug shovels into a sandbox. Okay. They still don't have the money. Sorry, I'll believe it when I see it. When I see real construction happening. And I'm still skeptical. But there's a couple of ownership things that are refreshing. Because as I said, I didn't want the A's to leave Oakland. I don't want the Rays to leave Tampa Bay. I don't want the White Sox to leave Chicago. I don't want any team to leave their current city. And it looks like any potential of the Arizona Diamondbacks leaving Phoenix looks like that's going away. Now, as I've said before, I am adamantly opposed to using public money for a billionaire's palace. I think that's wrong, especially when we have things like, I'm saying there's a public school teacher, that funds, no matter how you raise, whether through bonds or whether through local taxes or whatever it is, there's a lot better things. Police officers, paving streets, salaries for teachers, fire departments, infrastructure, a lot of things that could be used, that it beats a palace for a billionaire. But I also live on the planet Earth and I can't keep screaming at the tides. And it looks like public money is being coughed up to do repairs for, I can't remember what it's called now. I think it's called Chase Field. It used to be called Bank One Ballpark, whatever it is. The home of the Arizona Diamondbacks is going to get a facelift and get some refurbishing. And any rumors that the D-backs are going to scram for Utah or anywhere else looks like that's going away. And I think that's great news because I don't want the Diamondbacks to leave, not just because Miller's my buddy. And the other good news is it looks like there is going to be some sort of ownership. Now, of course, nothing's official yet, and there have been lots of close calls in the past, but it looks like a bunch of potential owners are lining up for the Rays. And one of the groups seems to be intent in keeping them in Tampa Bay. Now, I thought the Orlando group was going to win it because it looked like they had momentum. It looks like they had a plan. But if this happens, then any repair money for the Trop would make sense. Now, it would be bad news for St. Petersburg, who will eventually lose the Rays, but the Rays will stay in the region. And what I've been saying for years is I wanted to see the Rays with a downtown Tampa ballpark out of St. Petersburg and given a chance to succeed. And I think they could succeed. At least they should have a chance to succeed. You know, St. Petersburg was never the right place. And fix the Trop so they could play a season or two there and build a new stadium. If that's the plan, then I'm all for it. You know, yeah, the Trop will be in rough shape, but it's in rough shape now. It was in rough shape before the lid was ripped off of it. And if this means that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to stay in Tampa Bay, then I think that's good for baseball. And if the Rays can get a legit shot with a good stadium in the right place for what is already a pretty good sports market, we've seen them support the Lightning, we've seen them support the Buccaneers. Let's see them get a shot to support the Rays with a stadium in the right place. Now, it looks like Ybor City is going to be going to the MLS, or I think that's where it was. Either way, build it downtown. It can work. Take a look at the Padres. Padres are drawn like crazy. Take a look at the Giants, who couldn't do piddly-poo in Candlestick Park and are now one of the best, built one of the best stadiums in baseball and drew fantastic. Okay? This is a real shot, and I think it's good for baseball. I don't think it's good for baseball for teams to leave, and I think it's great if Tampa Bay gets a shot. So anyway, it's going to be a great weekend of baseball. It's going to be starting in just a couple hours. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Make your second listen the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale right here on the Locked On MLB feed. Talking about New York teams and why the fans need to get off the ledge and pick the carcasses of the Orioles and Pirates. We'll get to them in a little bit. And glad that the Diamondbacks are sticking around. Looks like the Rays may too. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Have a great weekend, everyone. Call me Sully.